So I think these videos help to illustrate the difference when someone has a bipolar label between being in a state where everything's fine, the brain is sped up, and hopefully it shows that one can integrate with that, in that it doesn't become something dysfunctional. Like, I've never gone gambling. Actually, I did one time years and years ago, and I won the jackpot at a casino on a penny slot, and that was the only time. I was just being silly, but it's because there were people I knew in there, and I was just like, hey. And then I don't go out drinking or partying. Being into health and wellness is really helpful. I use that energy to learn. I use it to be out in nature, and things that are life affirming, life positive. And then that energy is channeled into things that are positive. And I've learned not to get too taken with the visions, because I can't do it all myself. Right now my brain is swirling a little bit about putting together some resources for people in the community with a label, because when my brain is sped up and I'm feeling well, I feel very fortunate to have learned what I've learned, and there's so much more to learn. And that's part of what this state feels like. Every moment there's an opportunity to learn or see something new. And I feel like I'd like to share some of the resources that I've utilized to be able to get to this point. And a lot of what I've talked about is how the brain has capacities and we don't understand them, and they do have value, but the mainstream way of functioning doesn't see them and recognize them, and so we're sort of left out to the margins, and it's very hard to know how to harness those gifts and things like that. And I haven't really talked that much about the sad fact that many of us are short on cash and maybe want to lose weight and they're not as much like, I want to be spiritual or learn about my brain cells. Those very fundamental needs, according to Maslow's needs, are needed to be met. And if one has a little bit more money and a little bit more energy and health, it's a lot easier to go out and pursue those other things. And I think I wrote something about that on my blog, like going out and living one's dreams when one can. And it's not always possible, and there are hard times. So a lot of times when I get this energy, I feel like, I want to create some big vision. When lately I'm realizing, and it's taken me so long to realize and there's so much more to realize and then forget and re-realize and not even realize that it's a re-realization. Feels like the first time. Just sharing with the people one loves and cares about in one's daily life. So how can I help my friends? Because I've realized that, and I've talked about this, how the process I went through lately seemed very self-centered. But it was self-centered in that I needed to learn how to deal with the process of crisis where the self comes back very strongly. And I had some of that a little bit before I went away to the island. Managed to get away. It went away for a couple weeks, but then it was about a struggle from June 20th to maybe July 4th. So that's 2 weeks as opposed to 3 months, so that's great. So now I have more time and energy to do something with that energy. So what am I going to do? yeah, so what I'm learning by my current work situation, since it's such a great environment, is I'm able to really connect with people better. I've done peer support in the community, and I find it so difficult because people are often in like not really ideal circumstances, and like maybe they're living with their parents and they don't want to, or they just got diagnosed and they're really struggling. Whereas at the other situation, it's like a really nice environment. So even if maybe people don't have the greatest living situation, in that scenario where it's really a great environment, maybe not everyone experiences it like that, but I certainly have. It's easier to connect with people. And I've connected with people all along and made friends, but this is sort of connecting with people that maybe we wouldn't necessarily connect as much. But in this role, it's sort of a role to connect. And I'm finding it quite fun. So I feel like I'm at a point where I don't really need anything. I need to be outside, I need silence sometimes, and I kind of need my own space at some point because I don't find my living situation ideal. I closed the vents, the heat vents, and the air conditioning's not coming downstairs, and yesterday I got back and it wasn't ice cold. You know, that's the problem when I'm in a state of anger and like it's hard to implement solutions. The solution was to close those vents, which I could have done months ago, because even in the winter when the heat was on, not enough heat really got downstairs and I found it cold. Well, I guess closing the vents wouldn't have helped then, but now since there's air conditioning, it did help. Though when I slept, I woke up sweaty, which never happens, and I think because the air wasn't circulating. And what I'm trying to say is that I'm really seeing the daily living of some of this, and I feel like there's a subtle shift that's really big and profound, and that is that my sort of love of understanding and information and making meaning and, you know, visions or whatever, and hoping things to be better on this grand scale is being replaced with a love of human beings. Could it be true? And, you know, everyone loves people. Or not everyone, but I don't know if I've really been a people lover per se. I'm kind of like a loner in a way, but I have friends and everything. But some people I've met just say, I just love getting to know people and meet people and learn about people, and I've never really felt that way. I do enjoy that, but I didn't feel that as like as a movement of what I wanted to do. It naturally happens. We can't help but meet people and talk with people. But I never felt like, oh, I just love getting to know people. For whatever reason, I've probably felt more like I don't really connect well with most people because, like, I don't watch TV. I don't. Sometimes I'm on diet plans that are pretty extreme, like raw vegans, so that limits going out and being social. Or I don't drink, I don't do drugs except for pharmaceuticals. And I'm not saying those things are bad, but those can limit the social circle and things like that. And I don't really watch too many movies. Sometimes I watched Blade Runner 2049, and I liked that better than the first one. The first one was kind of like just kind of creepy, but not like in a scary way, just kind of like creepy, like heebie-jeebies creepy. But apparently in its day it was quite the thing. I heard that from a friend. But I liked the new one because it does seem like a possible future, whereas that old one, we're in that time now and it's like it's nothing like that. So that was just kind of weird. And I think I talked about watching a movie called Brain on Fire, where this woman basically becomes catatonic, and she seems psychotic, and they're trying to diagnose her with schizophrenia, and the parents insist on her not going to the psych ward, and they eventually find that through a brain biopsy that she has NMDA receptor sensitivity in the brain or something, and like her right brain was on fire, like inflammation, and with treatment she was able to get better, but it was a process of recovery. And in the end it mentioned something like how many people diagnosed with psychosis and all, and like catatonic schizophrenia might have this NMDA receptor kind of thing going on in the body, and or there could be something else going on biologically that we're unaware of. You know, that would be the biological test for schizophrenia or whatever. And then maybe it's not that at all if there's right treatment, but they treat it with psych drugs if it's schizophrenia. But if it's, they're saying it's a biological thing and they're correcting this chemical imbalance, which could have a truth. But what I'm saying is there's many biological illnesses that mimic psychotic disorder. I know somebody with Wilson's disease, which is a genetic disorder, hard to diagnose, that usually manifests in the late teens, early 20s, and basically they start acting crazy. And this person I know, they thought she was on drugs or something. Took quite a long time, and she's like falling apart physically as well. And eventually they did some kind of liver like scope in the belly and noticed inflamed liver, and they thought maybe it was alcohol related. But eventually somehow, maybe I don't know how many years it took, she was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder, Wilson's disease, and it's hard to treat, but it is treatable. That was probably like 15 years ago. But they could have just said she had psychosis. They would have eventually known maybe that it wasn't that, but at first they didn't know what the hell it was. Thought it was alcohol and drugs. And how many people, like some people look like they're on alcohol and drugs and they're not. There are some. So yeah, there could be things that we don't even know about that are causing these problems. And there are books about all these different medical tests that should be given to rule certain things out. But we're not given the full workup. We are given an MRI, sometimes like to check for tumors and things, sometimes an EEG, but we're not given like a full workup that a naturopath might do to rule out all different things. It's just a few main tests, but there could be anything like 20 fundamental things they could check. Like sometimes thyroid problems can lead to people acting kind of psychotic-ish. And then you correct the thyroid problem, they're not. But if you diagnose them with a mental illness, put them on psych meds, and then once that happens, usually anytime we have any kind of complaint, it's passed off as, well, it's probably your mental illness or the side effects of the meds, and problems of the body aren't looked into properly. So, and she raised that point, like how many people diagnosed with psychotic disorders or schizophrenia or bipolar, I don't know if she mentioned bipolar, have some kind of biological problem for real, not the chemical imbalance problem that they try to say. And I think she has a book called Brain on Fire, and that could be an interesting read if I had time to read it. But somebody else told me to read the book by Jill Bolte Taylor, I think is her name, about how she had a stroke. It's called My Stroke of Insight. I have seen the TED Talk. It's really good, but I haven't read the book. And I don't have time. I was looking at my book by Dr. Mercola, Fat for Fuel, and then I accidentally clicked on a different book, and it was The Possibility Principle that I haven't finished reading, but I like it because it's talking about mental illness a little bit and talking about possibility, and not many people make that leap. And then it was talking about Alfred Korzybski E prime, which is English prime, which is using English without the verb to be, because it sort of solidifies things into subject object. So instead of saying I am tired, I would say I feel tired today because I worked a long shift. Whereas if it's like I am tired, then it's like puts it into alwaysness. So I was thinking that would be better almost than CBT, because that'd be like I am bad. Well, why don't you say I am good? Whereas just getting rid of, it could be called EBT, English Prime Behavioral Therapy. Alright, so I have to try a piece of this because I had sushi and I think I'm too full to eat the whole thing, but I need to eat it on the day that it was made, or the day that it's the freshest, at least to try. That's what I'm attempting to do here. Save this plastic knife, and this one's s'mores. And the guy was saying that they make them in a commissary kitchen, so they rent a full kitchen. And then I remembered, like, where did it, I was like, what's that mean? And then he told me he rents the commercial kitchen, like a share in it. And then I just realized now that the word commissary is familiar to me from watching Orange is the New Black. I think this might be the best donut I ever ate. I like the plain one better. Really good. So yeah, since officially realizing that I think I fell in love with humanity, and also I realized when I was driving that we need to fall in love with the sound of our own voice. And what I mean by that is our voice is used against us inside our heads as we experience it. And we usually often use our voice against ourselves out loud or each other out loud. We need to fall in love with it and speak from a place of love and speak lovingness and be surprised what we say ourselves, because it comes from emptiness. Love is emptiness, meaning it's not a particular form or a word or a concept. It's the unknown. And the unknown, I won't go into that, but what I wanted to say is that it might be time to start showing more of what it's like to be bipolar, in that I've shown what it's like, but I mean as participating more in life as it is, instead of sticking to the forests and sticking to trying to learn how to manage crisis, which I feel like I haven't completely mastered, but I've done it enough to know, okay, it's safe to go back into so-called reality for another round, another try, and show more of that. Though the only trouble with that is I do hang out with people a lot and I don't want to show them. So I've shown some of it, but I want to show maybe a different flavor. And I'll forget for sure what I'm talking about now, but I feel like bipolar people can bring, at times, when they're not crashing, the possibility of a different kind of spirituality. A spirituality that can be really based on living life moment to moment. So instead of practicing being present and sitting there, being present while being fully engaged in life. So I'm going to try this myself. And there are times when I'm fully engaged in life, but I'm going to maybe try to show more of that, and maybe it will be a catastrophic failure, and that's okay, because it's just like the ABBA song, I Have a Dream. They say, if you see the wonder or the fairy tale, you can take the future, even if you fail. And if you're bipolar, you might know what that means. And we all have dreams, and we do get to live our dreams for sure, but it'd be nice to live them all here in our material earthly existence. And that's why we get up and try again. And I had too much food today. I'm sitting on the can and with my squatty potty, and it's kind of nice to just sit here and relax. Oh, I had to pee just a little bit more. And what was the other thing I was going to say? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Nothing is matter. Everything is energy. Everything is light. And matter is light slowing down enough so we can interface with it in a way that is more consistent and not so dreamlike. When really we're all made of dream stuff. And I think matter is waking up. Matter is trying to condense as the dream that we all dream together. You know, if you think about the lyrics in Michael Jackson's song Heal the World, it is a place within our hearts. So I'm gonna go do some other stuff now. Bye then, good night. And yeah, I think bipolar people can show that it's fun to be alive and living each moment and not be consistent, be playful. And maybe when people see what we can bring, they'll protect us when our nervous systems crash and burn, and appreciate the energy that we're able to bring into the world by sacrificing ourselves and our bodies to be a temporary conduit of that energy. But it eventually burns us out, so take care of us when we're not doing well. And love us unconditionally. And because we're trying to help uncondition you to not be as consistent and rigid and programmed. But we don't know that that's what we're doing. Unfortunately, right now we think it is about our own awesomeness. But it's not. It's about the awesomeness within each human being that is there, that is covered up. And we get really excited when that first time that veil gets removed. And, you know, doesn't mean you have to call us mentally ill and manic. We just get really excited. The brain gets really excited to be awake. The brain cells are celebrating, and then on the manifest human level, we celebrate inappropriately. But what is appropriate? Who decided that? And why do we all collectively conspire to Today I got branched chain amino acid gummies because to slow down a mania, Dr. Peter Smith of balancingbrainchemistry.co.uk says take branched chain amino acids because it draws dopamine into the muscles, and that depletes the brain from the supply of amino acids needed to create dopamine in the brain. And that's why this is like a workout recovery type thing, because it helps build muscle. So the problem is I have unflavored branched chain amino acid powder, and it tastes like ass. Really does, unless you have juice, and I don't drink juice, so I don't generally have juice. This is more convenient than powder and juice, than ass powder and juice. So, and I generally don't have to take this. I've only taken it one time just to see what it would do. It did make me feel more in my body. I was hoping it would make me sleep that day. I absolutely couldn't sleep, and it didn't do that. But anyway, so I got the gummies. All I'll have to do is compare the dosages, so I might have to eat quite a few gummies in order to have the same effect. I didn't look at the non-medicinal ingredients, but they're not bad, actually. Though there is erythritol, so if I had to take a lot of this, it might make me really, really farty. I don't know if anyone has experienced that from erythritol, but it's better to fart than be so manic that it causes problems. And I was realizing too that the importance of transcending or ending the lower states of consciousness, the ones below the level 200 on Dr. David Hawkins' scale of consciousness, is that if we're fearful when the mania stops, then we end up in the hospital. If we're angry, we might end up in jail. You know, like, these things have consequences. So yeah, I resolved a lot of the fear, and there's still more to go, of course, but I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm always learning. The brain cells are learning. The brain cells, when they learn, they make new connections. So it's not that there's this I, this separate entity learning, but the brain cells are making new connections, and they're making fluid connections. They're making loose connections. They're making connections that can move with the moment, that they may not apply to the next moment. They may not ever apply again. So the moment is what changes the brain connections, and not the momentum of the self creating habits and projections to move according to motivations which are conditioned into us. They're not even human motivations. They're motivations of self-centeredness, which is competition against each other. Such a waste of energy. What could we create together if we were cooperating, if we were co-creating, if we were synchronizing, if we were synergizing? Like, man, we would be unstoppable. Yet everything would stop, because it's a movement of stillness and of still space, changing what manifests on the screen of still space. Anyway, got some stuff to do now that I won't complete that rhyme. I'm wearing my orange sunglasses like a good bipolar person. Human, I should say, not person. There's no such thing as person or personal. But it's 9:00 p.m. on the dot, and I'm wearing my orange glasses because Dr. Peter Smith, he recommends sleeping in a dark room for 8 hours or whatever, but he recommends blocking blue light with the amber glasses for a total of 10 to 12 hours, up to 14 hours if one is manic. So 10 to 12 hours of the combination of the two. So wearing these glasses for about 4 hours and sleeping 8 hours or something like that. For a while I was sleeping 12 hours, so I didn't really have to worry about the glasses. But now I'm sleeping from more like 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then starting to sleep at 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then ending sleep around 7 or 8. So I'm sleeping like 6 to 8 hours, so I'm not getting enough blue blocking time. So I'm wearing the blue blockers, and then I'll sleep for however long, and that'll give me a total of 11 hours because I'm planning to get up at 8 a.m. And yeah, so I might put my other pair of blue blockers in the car and see if I can drive with them at night I know people can drive with the yellow glasses at night and they actually help with driving. I'm not sure about the amber ones, so we will see. Blue blockers. So I'm going to wear these and then be up for a bit, and I'm going to talk to my brain twin and